I opened my eyes, and the day was already asking for answers I did not have. Before my feet touched the floor, my mind had already gone to the decision waiting on me, the conversation I had delayed, the appointment on the calendar, the bill still unpaid, the message still unanswered, and the quiet question I kept trying not to ask. What comes next if I choose wrong? And if you are listening this morning with that same weight sitting somewhere inside you, this prayer is not here to rush you past it. It is here to bring that exact place before God, not the cleaned-up version, not the brave version, the real one, the one that feels uncertain, tender, and a little tired before the day has even begun. Father, I come to you in the first light of this day, before the noise grows louder and before the demands begin pulling from every side. I come because I do not want to walk ahead of you. I do not want to force open what you have not opened. I do not want to step into a moment without your wisdom, your covering, and your peace. So right here, at the beginning, I ask you to go before me, go before every decision, go before every room I enter, go before every conversation, go before every unknown place in this day that I cannot yet see. Lord, some mornings feel simple, but this one does not. This morning carries questions that do not have quick answers. It carries responsibility that feels heavier than usual. It carries the pressure to choose, to respond, to plan, to explain, to fix, or to move forward when the road still looks unclear. And yet, God, I remember that you are not confused by what confuses me. You are not delayed by what feels late to me. You are not standing behind me trying to catch up to the day. You are already present in every hour I have not reached. So I slow down before you. I breathe in the truth that this day is not bigger than you. I breathe out the fear that I have to control every outcome before I begin. Your word tells me to trust in you with all my heart and not lean on my own understanding. It tells me that when I acknowledge you in all my ways, you will make my path straight. Father, I am acknowledging you now, not as a habit, not as a phrase. I am acknowledging you because I need you. I need your guidance more than my guesses. I need your timing more than my urgency. I need your presence more than my perfect plan. Go before me, Lord, where my sight stops. Go into the place where I do not know what someone will say. Go into the choice where both options feel costly. Go into the delay that makes me wonder if I missed something. Go into the open question that keeps circling in my mind. There are parts of this day I can prepare for, and there are parts I simply cannot. But nothing ahead of me is hidden from you. Nothing ahead of me is outside your reach. Nothing ahead of me is beyond your ability to guide, protect, provide, and bring peace. Father, I ask for a calm heart before I ask for a clear answer. I ask for a steady spirit before I ask for a visible sign. Because sometimes I want direction so badly that I forget. Your nearness is already a gift. Sometimes I want certainty so quickly that I miss the quiet assurance that you are holding me, even while the details are still forming. So give me the grace to begin this day with you, not with panic. Let my first movement not be fear. Let my first agreement not be anxiety. Let my first surrender be simple and honest. God, I cannot see the whole way, but I trust the one who can. You know the decisions that are waiting. You know the ones I have talked about and the ones I have kept inside. You know the places where I feel pressure to answer before I am ready. You know where people are expecting something from me, and you know where I am expecting too much from myself. Father, meet me there with wisdom that is not frantic. Meet me there with discernment that is not driven by fear. Help me notice the difference between a door you are opening and a door I am trying to pry open because I am scared of waiting. If there is a step I need to take today, make it clear enough for obedience. If there is a step I need to delay, give me peace enough to wait. If there is a door that is from you, let it open in your way and in your time. If there is a door that would lead me away from your best, protect me from walking through it just because it looks convenient. I do not want the fastest path if it is not faithful. I do not want the easiest answer if it pulls me out of alignment with you. I want the way that carries your peace, even if it requires patience. And Father, I admit that patience can feel hard in the morning. It can feel hard when the phone is already nearby, when the schedule is already full, when people are already waiting, when the future feels like it is pressing its weight against the present moment. I admit that I sometimes confuse waiting with being forgotten. I sometimes confuse silence with absence. But your word reminds me that those who wait on you will renew their strength, not those who understand everything first, not those who have every outcome confirmed, those who wait on you. So teach me how to wait without collapsing inside. Teach me how to move when it is time to move and rest when it is time to rest. God, go before my thoughts today, because that may be the first road that needs your presence. Before I walk into any building, before I answer any call, before I face any person, I face the thoughts inside me. Some thoughts tell me I am already behind. Some thoughts tell me I am not ready. Some thoughts replay old mistakes and call them predictions. Some thoughts imagine the worst and act like they are protecting me. But this morning, I bring my inner life under your care. Lead my thinking away from fear and toward truth. Lead my attention away from every imagined disaster and back to the grace you have given for this present hour. Lord, as this morning begins, I ask you to go before my words. There may be conversations today that matter. Some may be ordinary, and some may carry weight. Some may require honesty. Some may require restraint. Some may require courage that I do not feel yet. Put a watch over my mouth. Let my words be clear without being harsh. Let my answers be honest without being anxious. Let me not use silence to avoid what love requires, and let me not use words to control what belongs to you. If I need to apologize, soften my pride. If I need to ask a question, steady my voice. If I need to set a boundary, keep me rooted in peace. And where someone else's words meet me today, help me not receive every sentence as a verdict over my life. Help me listen with wisdom. Help me hear what is true without absorbing what is not mine to carry. If criticism comes, give me humility without shame. If encouragement comes, let me receive it without suspicion. If confusion comes, keep me from spiraling. If silence comes, do not let me fill it with fear. You are still God in the spoken places and in the quiet places. Father, let your mercy meet me now, not later, when I feel more prepared, not only after I make the right choice, not only after everything settles. Meet me now, while the day is still opening. Meet me in the kitchen, in the car, beside the bed, at the desk, on the way out the door, or wherever this prayer is reaching the heart that needs it. Meet the person listening who is trying to be strong but feels worn down by not knowing. Meet the one who has been asking you for direction and wondering if they are missing your voice. Meet the one who has a decision to make and is afraid of choosing wrong. Meet the one who simply needs to know that you are already ahead of them. Lord Jesus, you are the good shepherd, and a shepherd does not lead from a distance. You know the path. You know the pace. You know when your sheep need green pasture, and you know when they must walk through a valley. You do not abandon them in either place. So shepherd me through this day. Walk ahead of me when I need direction. Walk beside me when I need comfort. Stand behind me when I need protection from what tries to follow me out of yesterday. Surround this day with your care. So before I move any further, before I rush into the noise, before I let the day name me as worried, late, afraid, or alone, I let your presence name this morning first. I belong to you. This day belongs to you. The path ahead belongs to you. And with open hands, I ask you to lead me into the next step. Then the phone lights up beside me, and before I even read the name on the screen, my stomach tightens. The first message on the phone makes the prayer become real. Not in a quiet room only, not in a soft morning only, but in the small shock of a screen lighting up, in a name I was not ready to see, in a question I still do not know how to answer. Father, I asked you to lead me today, and now the day is already asking for a response. So meet me here, Lord, not later when I feel stronger, not after I have sorted every option and rehearsed every sentence. Meet me in this first pressure, while my mind is still waking up and my heart is already trying to run ahead. I bring you this moment before I touch the message again. I bring you the little rush of fear that says I have to fix everything immediately. I bring you the old habit of answering too fast just to make tension stop. I bring you the part of me that wants to ignore what is hard and call it peace. Lord, Set a guard over my mouth and over my hands. Set a guard over the words I type, the calls I return, and the tone I carry into rooms today. Your word says that if I lack wisdom, I can ask you, and you give generously. So I am asking now, not as someone pretending to be calm, but as someone who needs wisdom before I move. There is a difference, Lord, between urgency and obedience, and I confess that I do not always know that difference quickly. Some things feel loud because they matter. Some things feel loud because fear has learned how to imitate importance. Teach me to hear beneath the noise. If this message needs an answer, give me a clean answer. If this conversation needs courage, give me courage without harshness. If this decision needs more time, give me the humility to wait without feeling like waiting is failure. Let me not confuse delay with neglect. Let me not confuse an open door with permission to run through it without listening. Let me not confuse a closed door with rejection when it may be mercy. Father, as I stand at the edge of this day, I remember that you are already present in the places I have not reached. You are in the meeting before I enter it. You are in the response before it arrives. You are in the hallway, the office, the car, the kitchen, the waiting room, the difficult call, the quiet pause after someone says something I did not expect. You are not surprised by any name that appears on my phone. You are not unsettled by any bill, appointment, deadline, or decision. What feels sudden to me has never been sudden to you. So, Lord, slow my inner pace. I may have to move quickly today, but my spirit does not have to panic. I may have to answer someone, but my answer does not have to be born from fear. I may have to make a choice with limited information, but I do not have to make it as if I am abandoned. You are the shepherd who leads, and your sheep know your voice. Give me that quiet recognition today. Not a dramatic sign I can show off. Not a perfect map I can control. Just the steady sense of your nearness, shaping the next faithful step. And for the person listening while getting ready, Lord, be in the ordinary motions. Be with the one tying shoes, with a distracted mind. Be with the one rinsing a cup while replaying yesterday's words. Be with the one sitting in a parked car because going inside feels heavier than it should. Be with the one who has already opened the inbox and now wishes they had not. These are not small places to you. These are the places where trust is practiced. These are the places where we learn whether we will carry the whole day alone or let you carry us through it one moment at a time. I ask you to go into the first conversation ahead of me. Prepare what cannot be prepared by my rehearsing. Soften what pride has hardened. Clarify what confusion has tangled. Remove the sting from words that do not need to wound. If I need to apologize, give me honesty without self-punishment. If I need to set a boundary, give me firmness without cruelty. If I need to ask a question, give me the courage to ask plainly. And if I need to be silent for a little while, let that silence be guided by love, not fear. Lord, I do not want to win an argument and lose peace. I do not want to protect my image and miss your way. There is also a decision waiting, and it has followed me into the morning like a weight I keep trying to set down. Father, I place that decision in your hands again. I do not place it there because it stopped mattering. I place it there because it matters too much for me to hold without you. I have thought through the options. I have imagined what could go wrong. I have wondered who might be disappointed. I have tried to predict the outcome, and still the future stays partly covered. So give me discernment that is deeper than prediction. Give me peace that is not dependent on having every detail. Give me the ability to recognize the step that carries your character, even if it does not carry every guarantee I wanted. Your word tells me to trust in you with all my heart and not lean on my own understanding. Lord, that sounds beautiful when life is quiet, but today it has weight. Today, it means I release the need to understand everything before I obey anything. It means I stop demanding a full explanation before I take the step. You have made clear. It means I admit that my understanding is useful, but it is not my God. My plans are useful, but they are not my Savior. My instincts can alert me, but they cannot shepherd me the way you can. So I acknowledge you here, in this exact path, and I ask you to make straight what fear has made crooked inside me. Open what needs to open today, Lord, but do not let me force a door because impatience is leaning on it. Close what needs to close, but do not let me stand outside a closed door calling it punishment. If you are protecting me, Give me grace to tell the difference. Let an opportunity carry peace and not just excitement. Let a warning carry clarity and not just anxiety. Let wise counsel sound different from pressure. Let flattery lose its power over me. Let fear lose its authority over me. And Father, protect me in the parts of this day I cannot see. Protect me from harm, but also protect me from the smaller dangers I often overlook. Protect me from distraction at the wrong moment. Protect me from a careless sentence that would create a wound. Protect me from agreeing just because I am tired. Protect me from saying yes to what you never asked me to carry. Protect me from saying no to what you are gently placing before me. Protect my mind from spiraling. Protect my body from carrying stress as if tension could solve anything. Protect my home, my work, my travel, my conversations, and the quiet spaces between them. Lord Jesus, you know how to walk through a day filled with demands and still stay close to the Father. You know what it is to be interrupted. You know what it is to be misunderstood. You know what it is to have people pull on you with urgent needs, hidden motives, real pain, and loud expectations. Teach me your pace. Teach me your attention. Teach me when to stop for the one person in front of me and when to withdraw before the crowd decides my assignment for me. I do not want to be controlled by every need I see. I want to be led by you. So I pause before I respond, before I leave, before I enter the next room, before I say the next thing. I let the day wait for one more breath. Father, fill that breath with your presence. The pressure is still here, but it is not alone with me. The question is still here, but it is not greater than your wisdom. The road is still partly hidden, but it is not empty. You are already there. You are already working. You are already preparing grace for the moment I have not reached. I take up only what belongs to this next step. Not the whole week, not every possible outcome, not the imagined reactions of every person involved. Just this next step, with you before me and your peace within me. If I need to answer, I will answer with you. If I need to wait, I will wait with you. If I need to walk into the room, I will not walk in as someone abandoned to chance. I will walk in as your child, held by your hand, listening for your voice. Then I touch the screen, open the message, and read the words I was afraid to see. Father, my thumb is hovering over the message, and I can feel one rushed reply trying to take over the whole morning. I have not even opened the whole conversation yet, but my body is already acting like the answer is due right now. My chest is tight. My thoughts are moving faster than wisdom. So before I tap, before I type, before I let fear borrow my voice, I bring this small screen and this large pressure back under your care. Lord, go before me into this message. Go before me into the words I am about to read. Go before me into whatever is being asked of me, whatever is being expected from me, and whatever I am afraid this may cost. I do not want to answer as if I am alone. I do not want to answer as if the whole future depends on one sentence from me. I want to remember that you are already in the place I have not reached yet. You are ahead of me, steady and kind, holding the part of this day I cannot see. I open the message, Lord, and there it is. The words are not cruel, but they are heavy. Someone needs an answer. Someone wants clarity. Someone is asking me to decide before I feel ready. The request looks simple on the screen, but it reaches into places that are not simple at all. It touches the decision I have been carrying. It touches my fear of disappointing people. It touches the part of me that wants to keep peace at any cost, even if I lose my own peace while doing it. Father, meet me right here, because this is where I usually start leaning on my own understanding. This is where I reread the same sentence until I imagine 5 different meanings. This is where I try to predict reactions, protect feelings, avoid conflict, and still somehow make the perfect choice. But your word says to trust you with all my heart and not lean on my own understanding. So I am not asking you to make me careless. I am asking you to make me dependent. I am asking you to pull me out of the tight circle of my anxious thinking and lead me on the path that is straight, because you are the one making it straight. I do not reply yet. I set the phone down with the screen still lit, and that small act feels harder than it should. Waiting, even for a few minutes, feels like disobedience to urgency. But urgency is not always truth. Pressure is not always guidance. A fast demand is not always an open door. So I sit with you in the space between reading and responding, and I ask for the wisdom you promised to give generously. I ask without pretending I already know. I ask without dressing up my fear as discernment. I ask like a child who needs help because I do need help. Lord, show me what this message is really asking from me. If it is asking for honesty, give me honesty without sharpness. If it is asking for a boundary, give me firmness without pride. If it is asking for an apology, give me humility without self-hatred. If it is asking for a decision, give me courage without rushing. If it is asking for patience, give me the grace to say, not yet, without feeling like I have failed. I do not want to confuse being available with being obedient. I do not want to confuse pleasing people with walking in love. The room around me is ordinary, but my heart feels like it is standing at an intersection. There are things on the counter. There are things on the calendar. There are names waiting inside the phone. Life has not paused just because I need clarity. That is why I need you to go before me today, not in a vague way, but in the exact places where I am most likely to react. Go before me into the tone of my reply. Go before me into the timing of my answer. Go before me into the conversation that may come after it. Let my words be few if few words are wise. Let my silence be clean if silence is needed. Let my yes be honest. Let my no be holy. And Father, if there is a door here that looks open but would pull me away from your peace, slow my hand. If there is a door here that looks uncomfortable but is actually your leading, strengthen my feet. I have asked you to open the right doors, but I also need you to change my appetite for the wrong ones. Sometimes I want the easy door because it lets me avoid a hard conversation. Sometimes I want the impressive door because it makes me feel chosen. Sometimes I want the familiar door because I do not have to trust you in a new way. Search me gently, Lord, not to shame me, but to free me from choosing out of fear. I pick up the phone again, and I start to write, then stop. The first version sounds too defensive. The second version sounds too eager to fix everything. The third version sounds like I am trying to make everybody comfortable except myself. So I erase it all. I breathe again. I remember that you are not only Lord over the final decision, you are Lord over drafts, pauses, deleted words, and the small restraint that keeps a morning from becoming a mess. Lord Jesus, you knew when to speak and when to be silent. You knew when to answer directly and when to ask a deeper question. You were never controlled by the demands around you. Yet you were never cold. Teach me that kind of steadiness. I do not want to use peace as an excuse to withdraw from people. I do not want to use responsibility as an excuse to ignore your peace. Hold both in me. Make me tender and truthful at the same time. For anyone praying along with me right now, Lord, meet them in their own unread message, their own waiting room, their own decision they cannot quite name out loud. If they are driving, working, cleaning, getting ready, or just trying to make it through the morning, let them feel that they are not praying alone. And if this prayer is helping them slow down with you, let this be a quiet place they can return to. Let a small community of weary people become a place where faith feels possible again, one morning at a time. Father, I turn back to the message with a little more room inside me. The situation has not changed yet, but something in me has shifted. I do not feel all the answers arriving at once. I feel the next faithful sentence becoming possible. That is different from certainty, but it is not nothing. It is a lamp to my feet, not a floodlight over the whole road. It is enough light for the next step, and today I receive that as mercy. So I type slowly. I do not over-explain. I do not promise what I cannot carry. I do not hide behind vague words just to delay discomfort. I write that I have received the message. I write that I need a little time to respond with care. I write one honest sentence about wanting to make the decision wisely, not reactively. My finger pauses over send, and even then I ask you again, because I know my heart. Lord, if this is not the moment, check me. If this is the moment, settle me. Peace does not crash into the room. It comes quietly. It comes like a guard standing at the door of my mind. It does not answer every question, but it keeps fear from taking every seat. I think of the promise that your peace can guard hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And I ask for that guarding now. Guard my heart from dread. Guard my mind from spiraling. Guard this conversation from becoming a place where old wounds make new decisions. Guard the other person too, Lord. Go before them as well. Prepare what I cannot prepare. I press send, and the message leaves my hand. For a second, I want to take it back, not because it was wrong, but because obedience often feels exposed after it moves. There is no instant reply, no immediate relief, no confirmation that everyone understands me, just the quiet after the step, so I sit in that quiet and let it be part of the prayer. I do not need to fill it with checking. I do not need to punish myself by staring at the screen. I have taken the step I had light for, and now I place the outcome where it belongs. But Father, the day is still moving. This was not the only unknown. There is still a conversation ahead that I cannot avoid forever. There is still the larger decision beneath this smaller message. There are still people who may not understand the pace you are teaching me. So do not let this one act of restraint become the place where I stop depending on you. Lead me past the first response into the next layer of faithfulness. Stay before me when the phone is quiet. Stay before me when it rings. Stay before me when I have to look someone in the eyes and speak with both courage and care. I gather what I need for the next part of the morning, and even simple movements feel different now. The keys in my hand, the notes I almost forgot, the appointment time I cannot ignore, the hallway between this room and the next thing. None of it is separate from you. None of it is too ordinary for your guidance. If you go before me, then every threshold can become a place of trust. If you go before me, then I do not have to enter any room carrying the whole weight of the future by myself. And now, Lord, as I move toward the conversation I have been avoiding, keep my spirit low enough to listen and strong enough to tell the truth. Let me not rehearse arguments on the way. Let me not build a case before I hear what needs to be heard. Walk ahead of my assumptions. Stand between my fear and my mouth. Prepare the room before I arrive, and prepare me before I step into it. The calendar alert sounded 10 minutes before the conversation. I had been praying around all morning, and my chest tightened like my body had been waiting to panic on schedule. Father, here it is again. The moment after the first message, the moment when I can no longer hide behind preparation. The reply has been sent. The quiet has been tasted. But now there is a voice waiting on the other side of this next step. I am not just choosing words on a screen anymore. I am about to sit in the open place where my tone can be heard, where my hesitation can be noticed, where my fear might try to lead before you do. Lord, go before me into this conversation. Go before me into the room, into the call, into the pause before anyone speaks. Go before me into what I think I know, and into what I do not know yet. I have asked you for guidance, but now I need guidance with skin on it, guidance in the small second before I answer. Guidance when someone asks me a direct question and my old habits rise up fast. I need you to steady more than my plans. I need you to steady my face, my breath, my listening, my pace, and the place inside me that wants to rush just so the discomfort will end. I looked at the notes I had written, and they did not feel as brave as they had felt a few minutes earlier. They were simple notes. They were honest notes. But now, with the time getting close, I could see how much I wanted those notes to protect me from needing to trust you in real time. I had written down what I might say if the other person pushed. I had written down what I might say if they were disappointed. I had even written down a sentence that sounded kind, but underneath it I knew I was trying to keep control of the room. Father, I do not want polished fear. I do not want spiritual-sounding self-defense. I want the wisdom. You promise when your children ask and do not know what to do. Your word says that if any of us lacks wisdom, we can ask you, and you give generously. So I am asking again, not because you did not hear me before, but because this moment is new. I lack wisdom for this exact call. I lack wisdom for this exact decision. I lack wisdom for the difference between a closed door and a hard door, between a delay and disobedience, between a warning and simple discomfort. I do not want to call something peace just because it lets me avoid pain. I do not want to call something courage just because it lets me prove a point. Teach me the sound of your leading in this particular place. The screen stayed dark while I waited, and that quiet became its own test. It is strange how silence can feel like an accusation when I am already afraid. I started to wonder if I should send one more message before the conversation began, just to soften the ground, just to make sure no one misunderstood me. but I felt the tug of that same old need to manage what only you can hold. So I set the phone down and put both hands flat on the table. Father, keep me from trying to go ahead of you in the name of being responsible. Keep me from crowding the path with extra words, because I do not trust you to meet me in the few words that are needed. And Lord, I have to tell you the part I would rather dress up. I am not only afraid of making the wrong decision, I am afraid of being seen as difficult. I am afraid of being seen as uncertain. I am afraid that if I ask for time, or name a concern, or refuse a door that looks good from the outside, someone will think less of me. That fear has been louder than I wanted to admit. It has been sitting under my prayers like a second conversation. The message this morning pressed on my schedule, but this conversation is pressing on my identity. It is asking whether I believe I am still held by you when someone is not pleased with me. That is the place I bring to you now, not just the decision, not just the words. This needy place that wants approval so badly, it can mistake approval for direction. Father, go before me there. Walk into that hidden room in me before I do. Let your presence arrive where my people-pleasing has been making plans without asking you. If the door ahead is truly from you, let me enter it without selling my peace. If the door is not from you, let me step back without needing everyone to understand. And if the answer is not simple yet, let me be faithful in the middle instead of forcing a false ending. The call link appeared, and my finger hovered over it the same way my thumb had hovered over the message earlier. This time the pressure felt different. The first pressure had been urgency. This one was exposure. I could not delete my tone once it was spoken. I could not edit my pause after someone heard it. So I whispered, Jesus, be Lord of my mouth. And then I joined before fear could build another case against obedience. The other person's face came on the screen, and for a moment we both did that ordinary, polite thing people do when something heavy is in the room but no one has named it yet. They thanked me for responding earlier. Their voice was not harsh, and that almost made it harder. If they had sounded demanding, I could have hidden behind resistance. But they sounded tired. They sounded like this decision mattered to them too. Father, help me remember that I am not the only person carrying uncertainty today. Help me not turn another person into pressure when they may also be praying through their own unknowns. Help me listen as someone who is being led, not as someone building a defense while the other person speaks. They explained more than the message had carried. There were details I had not known. There were timing issues that made the decision feel tighter. There were hopes connected to my answer that made my stomach sink a little. I felt the old reflex come up in me, the reflex to nod too quickly, to sound agreeable, to give relief before I had clarity. But underneath that reflex, there was a small steadiness I knew I had not made myself. It did not shout, it did not remove the pressure. It simply held me in place long enough not to betray the peace you had given me, so I did not answer right away. I took one breath, then another. I said I wanted to understand what was truly being asked before I responded. My voice shook slightly, but it did not break. I asked one plain question, then I asked another, and as the other person answered, the shape of the decision changed. It was still serious. It was still not easy, but it was no longer the simple trap my fear had drawn in the dark. There was more room than I thought. There were parts that could wait. There were parts that needed honesty now. There was one part I could not agree to without pretending. Lord, this is where I need you most. Not in the dramatic moment only, but in the careful middle where the path becomes more complicated than a yes or a no. Your word says to trust in you with all our heart and not lean on our own understanding. I used to hear that as if it meant I would never have to think carefully, but now I hear mercy in it. I do not have to lean the full weight of this day on my own understanding. I can use the mind you gave me without worshipping it. I can ask questions without being ruled by suspicion. I can notice a warning without surrendering to fear. Then the other person asked if my hesitation meant I was backing out. There it was, the sentence I had dreaded. My hands went cold. For 1 second, I wanted to repair the discomfort by promising more than I could give. I wanted to say, no, everything is fine, because those words would have made the room easier for a moment. But they would have made my soul less honest. Father, you went before me into that question. You were already there when it reached me, so I told the truth as gently as I could. I said my hesitation meant I was taking the decision seriously. I said I did not want to give a quick yes and then carry resentment, confusion, or strain into what came next. There was a pause after that. Not an angry pause. Not a peaceful pause either. Just a human pause, full of things neither of us could settle instantly. I watched the other person look down, and I had to fight the urge to fill the space. Lord, bless the holy work of not filling every silence. Bless the restraint that feels awkward but keeps love clean. Bless the kind of honesty that does not stab, and the kind of patience that does not disappear into avoidance. If you are guiding me, then I do not need to crowd the moment. I can let the pause breathe. For anyone praying along with me today, anyone standing at the edge of a conversation they have delayed, meet them right there too. Meet the one who has a hard answer to give. Meet the one who is afraid of being misunderstood. Meet the one who has been hoping an open door would come without any tension attached. Remind us that your leading is not always loud, and your protection is not always a wall we can see. Sometimes, your protection is the checked sentence, the slower reply, the honest boundary, the question asked before the promise is made. The conversation moved again, but it moved differently after that pause. The other person did not push as hard. I did not retreat as fast. We began naming the real pieces instead of circling the pressure. One part of the request was possible. Another part was not wise right now. One timeline felt forced. Another timeline left room for prayer, counsel, and careful obedience. Nothing was fully settled, but something false had loosened. The fear that said I had to choose between kindness and truth had lost some of its grip. I could feel it letting go, not all at once, but enough for this next breath. Father, I thank you for that kind of help. It is quieter than I expected, but it is real. You did not make me impressive. You made me present. You did not hand me a perfect speech. You kept me from abandoning myself to please another person. You did not remove every unknown from the path ahead. You gave me enough light to take the next honest step. This is how you go before me sometimes. You arrive in the conversation before I can control it. You prepare mercy in the place I thought would only hold pressure. You show me that a door can be tested without being slammed, and a delay can be faithful without being fearful. Then the other person leaned closer to the screen and asked the question that brought the larger decision back into the center. They asked, "What would you need in order to move forward?" The question landed harder than the request itself, because now I had to say out loud what I usually only admit to you in silence. The other person waited on the call, not pushing, not smiling too much, just leaving space for my answer. They had asked what I would need in order to move forward, and I could feel the old part of me reaching for a quick, acceptable response. I almost said, "Nothing. I can make it work." I almost made my uncertainty sound smaller so nobody else would have to sit with it. But beneath my hand, my notes were still open, and at the top of the page I had written one line before the call began. "Lord, go before my answer." So, I did not rush. I took one breath, then another, and I let the silence stay in the room a little longer than felt comfortable. Father, I need you in this exact kind of pause. Not only in the big decisions after everything is clear, but in the small space between being asked a question and feeling pressure to perform certainty. I need you before the words leave my mouth. I need you before my fear dresses itself up as kindness. I need you before my desire to be easy to work with becomes a yes that you never gave me peace to give. I looked at the screen and said slowly, "I think I would need a little more time, a clearer sense of the timeline, and an honest conversation about what can actually be carried without pretending." As soon as I said it, my chest tightened, because the sentence sounded heavier in the air than it had sounded in my head. But it was true. It was not dramatic. It was not a refusal. It was a boundary with trembling hands. And somehow, Lord, even with the trembling, it felt cleaner than the polished answers I had been tempted to give. The other person nodded, but I could see disappointment pass across their face. It was not anger. It was not rejection. It was simply the cost of honesty becoming visible. That was the part I had wanted to avoid. I had wanted truth without any weight landing on anyone else. I had wanted obedience without the ache of someone receiving it. But you were with me there too. You did not shame me for feeling the ache. You did not tell me to harden myself so the conversation would be easier. You kept me present enough to care and steady enough not to collapse. For anyone praying along right now who is facing a conversation like this, Lord, meet them in that same narrow place. Meet the person who knows the truthful answer but is afraid of the face on the other side of it. Meet the one who has been called unreliable before, or difficult or too hesitant, and now trembles every time they ask for time. Meet the one who confuses peacekeeping with faithfulness, because conflict has always felt like danger. Go before their words today. Guard them from cruelty, yes, but also guard them from self-erasure. The call did not break after my answer. That surprised me. A moment passed, and then the other person said, "That makes sense. I can work with that if we define what more time means." Their voice still carried urgency, but it was no longer pressing against me in the same way. Something had shifted. The decision had not become simple, but the room around it had become more honest. I could feel, in a quiet way, what Scripture means when it says that a gentle answer can turn away wrath. There had been no wrath here. Not exactly, but there had been tension, and gentleness had kept it from becoming a wall. Lord, thank you for showing me that truth does not always have to arrive like a slammed door. Sometimes truth can arrive like a lamp being placed on the table. It does not solve everything at once. It simply lets everyone see what is actually there. And today I need that kind of light, not the kind that exposes people to embarrass them, not the kind that makes me feel superior because I finally spoke clearly. I need the humble light that helps all of us stop guessing in the dark. We began to talk through what more time meant. At first, my mind tried to run ahead again. I could feel it calculating outcomes, imagining reactions, trying to predict whether this delay would cost me the opportunity altogether. But then the words from Proverbs came back, not like a verse on a wall, but like a hand on my shoulder. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. I had heard those words so many times, but now they felt less like a promise of instant certainty, and more like permission not to carry the whole map in my head. So I said, if we could take a few days to look at the real timing and name what would have to be adjusted, I think I could answer from a better place. The other person wrote something down. I wrote something down too, even though I already knew what I had said. I needed to see the words outside of me. I needed to know I had not imagined the moment. There it was on the page. A few days, real timing, honest adjustments, not forever, not avoidance, not a vague delay that lets fear hide. A next step. Father, this is where I ask you to go before the calendar. Go before the dates that look open but are not truly wise. Go before the commitments I forgot to count because they are emotional instead of official. Go before the hidden cost of saying yes. Go before the unseen grace of a door that might still be open after a pause. If this path is from you, let it have enough room for obedience without frantic striving. If it is not from you, let it narrow in a way I can receive without panic. The other person began naming what could be flexible and what could not. Some parts of the timeline were firmer than I had hoped. Other parts had more space than I expected. I listened, and this time I did not listen only for the sentence that would rescue me. I listened for what was true. That felt different. I was not waiting for them to convince me, and I was not waiting for them to release me. I was asking you to teach me how to hear without making another person responsible for my peace. There was one moment when they said, this part would need to happen sooner, and my stomach dropped again. The old fear came back fast. It told me that urgency meant I had already lost my chance to be careful. It told me that if one piece was tight, then everything had to be decided right now. But another voice, quieter and steadier, seemed to rise beneath it. This is information, not a command. Lord, I believe that was mercy. I believe you were teaching me that pressure can be real without becoming my master. I asked one more question. If that part has to happen sooner, what would be the smallest faithful version of moving forward while the rest is still being discerned? The words surprised me as I said them. I had not planned that sentence. It did not sound like my fear. It did not sound like my usual all-or-nothing thinking. It sounded like a path appearing one stone at a time. Maybe this is one way. You go before us, Lord. You do not always remove the unknown. Sometimes you give us a better question to ask inside it. The other person paused then. For the first time in the conversation, they looked away from the screen, thinking. That pause did not feel like punishment. It felt like the conversation itself had slowed down enough for wisdom to enter. They came back with a smaller option, something that did not require the full weight of the larger decision yet. It was not a loophole. It was not a way to avoid commitment while pretending to commit. It was simply a possible first step, one that could be tested with integrity before the larger yes or no had to be spoken. Lord, I do not want to mistake every smaller step for your will. I know avoidance can disguise itself as patience. I know fear can call itself discernment. But I also know that you are a shepherd, not a driver cracking a whip behind me. Your rod and your staff comfort. They do not terrorize. So if this smaller step is wisdom, let it carry peace that remains after the call ends. If it is only delay wearing holy language, let it become clear. I do not need a path that flatters me. I need a path that is led by you. For the listener who is trying to decide whether a door is open, closed, or only partly open, give them discernment that is not frantic. Some doors open with ease, some open slowly. Some look open because everyone else is holding them wide, but the spirit inside keeps whispering caution. And some look impossible until obedience takes the next humble step. Lord, go before each person in that mystery today. Let them not worship the door. Let them listen for you. As the call continued, the conversation became less about proving my willingness and more about naming reality. We talked about capacity. We talked about what would need to be delayed, what would need to be supported, and what would need to be released if I moved forward. Every honest sentence made the decision feel less like a fog and more like a road with actual edges. Not an easy road, not a guaranteed road, but a road I could look at without pretending it was something else. That was when I realized how much of my anxiety had come from trying to answer an undefined question. I had been asking, can I do this? But the real question was more faithful and more specific. Can I do this in a way that is obedient, honest, and not built on hidden resentment? That question did not accuse me, it clarified me. It made space for you to search me without crushing me. It made space for courage without rushing me into performance. Father, search what needs to be searched. If I am holding back because I do not want inconvenience, show me. If I am stepping forward because I want approval, show me. If I am calling something wisdom because I am afraid to trust you, show me gently but clearly. And if I am sensing a real warning from you, protect that warning from being talked away by pressure, flattery, or my own fear of disappointing someone. The other person asked if I could send a clearer answer after the few days we had named. I said yes, but this yes was different from the one I had almost given earlier. This yes was not a yes to the whole decision. It was a yes to seek you honestly within a defined window. It was a yes to pray, to review, to count the cost, to ask for counsel if needed, and to come back with an answer that did not hide behind vague language. For once, the next step did not feel like a trap. It felt like a responsibility I could carry with you. We agreed on a time to reconnect. I wrote it down, and I saw the shape of the next few days form in front of me. Before we ended the call, the other person said, I appreciate you being honest about what you need. I did not know how to answer that without sounding more confident than I felt. So I simply said, thank you for making room for the conversation. And I meant it. That too felt like grace. Not every hard conversation becomes safe. Not every person receives hesitation with patience. But today, there had been enough room. Enough room to tell the truth, enough room to ask for time. Enough room to let the decision breathe without abandoning it. When the call ended, the screen went dark, and my reflection came back in the glass. I sat there for a moment, with my hands still near the keyboard. Nothing dramatic happened. No thunder of certainty. No instant answer written across the room. But there was a quiet sense that you had gone before me into the conversation, and now you were already going before me into the waiting that came after it. I closed my notes, left the next meeting time on the calendar, and whispered, Lord, lead me through these next few days, one honest step at a time. The calendar looked less like a plan the next morning and more like a list of places where I could fail someone if I answered too quickly. Father, I sat with it open and felt that old pressure rise again. The pressure to make the decision clean, just so no one else would have to feel the weight of my uncertainty. The call had ended peacefully enough, and we had agreed on a smaller next step, but the bigger question was still waiting in the room with me. I had not escaped it. I had only brought it into the light. So before I touched another message, before I tried to make myself sound confident, I put my hands on the table and prayed, "Lord, go before me here too, not only into the conversation, but into the thinking, into the waiting, into the part where nobody sees me trying to obey you." I looked back at the notes I had written before the call, and they felt different now. Some of the sentences still sounded like fear dressed up as wisdom. Some of them sounded like wisdom that I had been afraid to trust. That was the harder part. I could not simply label every hesitation as unbelief, and I could not label every opportunity as an open door. I needed you to separate what was true from what was loud. I needed the kind of wisdom James talks about, the kind you give generously when your children ask, without pretending they already know. The smaller next step was sitting in front of me like a test of obedience. It was not the whole commitment. It was not the final yes, but it would cost something. I had to give real time to it. I had to look honestly at my capacity and not invent a version of myself who could do more than I could actually do. Father, that is where I felt exposed. I can sound faithful when I speak in broad terms, but when faithfulness becomes a calendar block, an energy limit, a returned call, or a boundary spoken kindly, I find out what I have been trusting. I find out whether I am trusting your leading or trusting the relief that comes when everyone is pleased with me for one more day. So I began with the plain things. I wrote down the dates that were fixed. I marked what could move and what could not. I named the places where my yes would create pressure for people who had not been in the conversation. I named the places where my no would disappoint someone who had hoped I could help. Nothing about that felt spiritual at first. It felt like math and time and the unromantic truth of limited strength. But as I sat there, I remembered that you are not offended by ordinary details. You can guide through a prayer whispered over a schedule. You can close a door through honest limits. You can open a door without requiring me to ignore the life you have already placed in my hands. By midday, the first answer I wanted was still the answer that would make the pressure stop. That was not peace. That was escape. I could feel the difference, even though I did not like it. Escape had a hurried sound inside me. It said, "Just choose something so this will be over." Peace did not rush me like that. Peace was quieter, but it was not vague. It made room for truth. It let me admit that the request mattered. It let me admit that the other person mattered. It also let me admit that I mattered too, not in a selfish way, but as someone you are also shepherding. Lord, if you are going before me, then you are not only preparing the path outside me, you are preparing the honesty inside me. That afternoon, I reached out to someone I trust, not to hand them the decision, but to stop hearing only my own thoughts echo back at me. I told them the simple version. There was a request. There was a tighter timeline than I expected. There was a smaller step already agreed on. There was a follow-up call coming. I said, "I am trying to tell the difference between fear and caution." Saying it out loud made my throat tighten, because that was the sentence under all the other sentences. The person on the other end did not rush to solve it. They asked one question that stayed with me. If no one judged you for either answer, what would obedience look like? I did not answer right away. I could not. That question removed the audience in my head. It removed the imaginary room full of disappointed faces. It removed the version of me who tries to earn safety by being easy to approve. And with all of that noise lowered, I could feel the decision more clearly. There was still sacrifice in one direction. There was still discomfort in the other. But obedience was not hiding as much as it had been. It was not a lightning bolt. It was more like a narrow path that became visible when I stopped demanding that it also feel painless. Father, I thought of Proverbs again, not as a verse on a wall, but as a road under my feet. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I used to hear that as a promise that the path would feel simple. Now I heard it as a mercy for moments when my understanding is too crowded to carry me. You were not asking me to pretend I had no thoughts. You were asking me not to lean my whole weight on them. You were inviting me to acknowledge you in the email draft, in the calendar, in the council, in the pause before replying, in the place where I wanted to protect my image more than I wanted to tell the truth. As the day moved on, I tested the smaller step by actually preparing for it. That changed something. Some fears grew weaker when I touched the real work. They had been shadows, larger from a distance than they were up close. Other concerns grew stronger, and those were the ones I had to respect. I could see where the request would require more than the other person realized. I could see where my earlier excitement had skipped over the cost. I could also see one area where I had been hiding behind complexity because I did not want to risk being needed. That part humbled me. Not every burden was a warning. Some burdens were invitations to grow up in trust. By evening, I had 2 honest sentences written in my notes. One sentence named what I could offer with a clean heart. The other named what I could not promise without stepping outside peace. They were not polished. They were not impressive, but they were true. I read them aloud in the quiet room, and I listened for the flinch. The flinch was still there, but it had changed. It was no longer the panic of being trapped. It was the trembling that comes before telling the truth kindly. That trembling did not mean I was outside your will. It might have meant I was finally close enough to obedience to feel what it would cost. Lord, if someone is listening to this part of the prayer while carrying their own unfinished answer, let them feel less alone in the middle. Not at the finish line, not after everything is resolved, but here, where the next conversation is still ahead. We are so tempted to think your guidance only counts once the outcome is clear. But you have been with me in the unfinished hours. You have been with me in the review, in the counsel, in the questions, in the slow sorting of motive from wisdom. You have gone before me in ways I could not announce to anyone. You have been making room for truth before I ever speak it. The next morning, I woke before my alarm and reached for the phone too quickly. There was no new message. Nothing had changed outside me, but something had changed inside me. I did not feel fearless. I did not feel certain in the way I had wanted to feel certain, but the decision no longer felt like a monster waiting behind the day. It felt like a doorway I could approach with you. That mattered. I sat on the edge of the bed and prayed the simplest prayer I had prayed all week. Father, walk ahead of my words. Stand between my fear and my mouth. Keep me from saying yes to be loved, and keep me from saying no to stay safe. After breakfast, I revised the notes for the follow-up call. I took out the apologizing that did not belong there. I left in the kindness. I took out the over-explaining that was really a plea to be understood perfectly. I left in the clarity. I wrote down one question I still needed answered before I could give the larger commitment. I wrote down one boundary I could not move without resentment growing later. That was a sobering word, resentment. I did not want to admit it, but it helped me. A false yes does not stay sweet forever. If I stepped past the limits you were showing me, I might look generous at first and become bitter later. That would not serve anyone. By the time the follow-up alert appeared, my heart still jumped. The sound cut through the room, and for 1 second I wanted more time again, not because I had done nothing, but because truth still asks for courage after preparation. I looked at the screen. I saw the meeting link. I saw the notes beside me. I saw the 2 honest sentences I had written and rewritten until they sounded like me instead of like a person performing confidence. Then I placed my hand over the page and said, Jesus, you are already in the conversation I'm about to enter. You know what is mine to carry, and you know what is not. The call opened, and the other person appeared with the same tired hope I had heard before. They were not an enemy. They were not a test to pass. They were a person with real needs, waiting for a real answer. That softened me without weakening me. I greeted them gently, and for a moment we both stayed in the ordinary kindness of voices reconnecting. Then they asked how I was feeling about everything after having a little time. The question landed exactly where I expected it to land, but it still made my pulse rise. I glanced down at the notes, breathed once, and knew this was the place where the prayer had been leading me, not around the answer, but into it with you already there. So I told them the truth. I said, I can take the smaller step we named, and I can do it with a clean heart, but I cannot commit to the larger timeline as it stands. If we move forward, the boundary has to be clear, the support has to be real, and the next decision has to wait until we have tested this first step honestly. The room went quiet. My body wanted to panic, because silence always tries to convince me that truth has failed. But I did not take the words back. I did not decorate them. I did not shrink them. I let the answer stand. The other person looked down at their notes. For a moment I could see disappointment again, but I could also see that they had heard me. They asked one clarifying question, and I answered it without over-explaining. They asked whether my smaller yes was firm, and I said yes. They asked whether my larger no was final, and I said, it is final for this timeline. It is not rejection of the whole thing. It is honesty about what I can carry faithfully. When I said that, something inside me settled. Not because the conversation became easy. It did not. Not because the other person suddenly smiled and said everything was perfect. They did not. But because I knew I had not handed fear the pen. I knew I had not given resentment a place to grow. I knew I had not used spiritual language to hide from a hard truth. Father, you were there. You were in the pause. You were in the boundary. You were in the smaller yes and the honest no. You were in the fact that my voice shook but still spoke. When the call ended, nothing dramatic happened. No music swelled. No door flew open. No perfect certainty filled the room. But I sat there with my hands open and whispered, Lord, thank you. You went before my answer. The morning after I gave the answer, my hand still reached for the phone, as if one more message could undo my peace. The decision was no longer floating somewhere ahead of me. It had been spoken. It had been heard. It had carried disappointment, relief, and a strange quiet all at once. Lord, I sat there with the screen dark in my palm, and I realized the unknown had not vanished just because I had obeyed you. The path was clearer, but it was still a path. There were still conversations to honor, details to tend, and consequences I could not control. So before I moved into the day, before I checked for replies, before I let my mind rehearse every possible reaction, I opened the same notes page again. The words from those earlier days were still there. Lord, go before my answer. Under them were the phrases that had kept me honest. A few days, real timing, honest adjustments, smaller step, clear boundary. I read them slowly, not as a record of my bravery, but as proof that you had been near when I did not know what to do. You had not shouted over the pressure. You had steadied me inside it. You had taught me that peace was not always the absence of trembling. Sometimes peace was the strength to tell the truth without running away. Father, I thank you for going before me into the answer itself. I thank you that you were already in the room I was afraid to enter. You were already ahead of the words I was afraid to say. You were already holding the parts I could not explain neatly to anyone else. When I said what I could offer with a clean heart, you kept me from decorating it to sound larger than it was. When I said what I could not promise without losing peace, you kept me from apologizing as if honesty were a sin. And when the other person's silence felt heavy for a moment, you kept me from filling it with a false yes. That was the mercy I did not expect. I thought I was only asking you to show me the right decision. But you were also showing me the kind of person you were forming in the decision. Not harder, not colder, not careless with other people, but truer, more surrendered, less ruled by the fear of being misunderstood. I had asked you to open the right door, and you did something deeper. You helped me stop trying to force open every door just so no one would feel the discomfort of waiting. Lord, let that stay with me today. Let it stay with the one listening who is still facing an answer they have not given yet. Let it stay with the person who has a meeting coming, a message waiting, a choice pressing against their chest before breakfast. Go before them now. Go before the sentence they are afraid to write. Go before the room they are afraid to enter. Go before the decision they keep revisiting because they want to be faithful, but they do not want to be foolish. You know the difference between delay and discernment. You know the difference between fear and wisdom. You know the difference between an open door and a door we are trying to pry open with anxiety. Your word says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. I had repeated that verse when my understanding felt thin. Now I hear the next part differently. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. You did not ask me to understand every branch of the road before I took the next obedient step. You asked me to acknowledge you in the way itself, in the phone call, in the notes page, in the calendar invite, in the pause before answering, in the humble sentence that did not protect my image but protected the truth. And Father, I confess that even after obedience, I still want control over the outcome. I want the other person to understand immediately. I want the timing to resolve cleanly. I want every loose end tied up before the day begins. But this morning I place those loose ends before you. I place the unanswered replies before you. I place the possible disappointment before you. I place the relief I feel before you too, because even relief can become something I cling to if I make comfort my guide instead of your presence. Go before the aftermath, Lord. That is my prayer now. Not only go before the decision, go before what comes after it. Go before the adjustment. Go before the next conversation. Go before the quiet places where I may be tempted to replay everything and accuse myself again. If I obeyed you with a sincere heart, do not let regret pretend to be humility. If I missed something, correct me without crushing me. If more needs to be said, prepare the words. If nothing more needs to be said, teach me to rest without proving myself. There was a moment later that morning when the next message finally came in. It was shorter than I expected. It did not solve everything. It did not wrap the whole matter in warmth. But it was honest. It named the smaller step. It confirmed the timing. It left room for the larger thing to remain limited. I read it twice, and something in me settled. Not because every feeling was pleasant, but because the ground under me felt real. We were no longer building on assumptions. We were no longer borrowing strength from a future I had not been given. We were standing on the measure of grace you had actually supplied. Lord, teach me to honor the measure you give. That may be one of the holiest lessons of this whole path. I do not need to despise a small yes because it is not a large one. I do not need to dress up a no until it sounds more comfortable. I do not need to call strain sacrifice when you are asking for truth. You give daily bread, not imaginary bread for every possible demand. You give light for the step, not a floodlight for every mile. You give enough grace for obedience and enough mercy for the places where obedience still feels tender. For the listener praying with me right now, Lord, meet them in that same measure. If they are driving to work with the decision still turning in their mind, steady them. If they are standing in a kitchen with their phone nearby, waiting for news, steady them. If they are already tired before the day has fully started, steady them. Let them feel that they are not walking into this day alone. Let them know that you are not behind them trying to catch up. You are already ahead, preparing what they cannot see, guarding what they cannot manage, and making a way that does not depend on panic. Open the doors that are from you. Close the doors that would cost more than obedience requires. Slow what needs more time. Hasten what is ready by your hand. Protect us from the false urgency that makes everything feel like it must be solved by noon. Protect us from the fear that calls itself responsibility. Protect us from the pride that would rather overpromise than admit our limits. And protect us from the despair that says, because we cannot see the whole path, there must not be a path at all. Jesus, you said your sheep hear your voice, so help us recognize your voice today, not only in the dramatic moment, but in the quiet check in our spirit, not only in the open door, but in the holy restraint, not only in the yes, but in the peace-filled no, not only in movement, but in waiting that has not been wasted. Let your voice be clearer than pressure. Let your nearness be stronger than the need to impress. Let your timing become safer to us than our own rush. By mid-morning, I looked again at the calendar. The next step was still there. It had a time. It had a boundary. It had a beginning and an end. That simple shape felt like a kindness. I did not have to carry the whole future at once. I only had to meet the next faithful appointment with you already there. And that is where my prayer changed. I stopped asking you to remove every unknown before I moved. I began asking you to make me faithful inside the unknown, with enough peace to walk and enough humility to pause. That is the blessing I want to speak over this day. May the Lord go before you in every decision that has been weighing on you. May He stand in the conversations you have been dreading and soften what needs softening. May He strengthen what needs strength. May He give you clean words, honest timing, and a heart that does not confuse pressure with calling. May He make the path straight in the way only He can, not always by showing you everything, but by being faithful at every turn. And if this prayer is meeting you at the edge of your own uncertain day, you are not praying alone. Somewhere, another believer is asking God for guidance before answering. Somewhere, another weary heart is learning to wait without fear. Somewhere, another person is opening their hands over a decision they cannot fully control. So we agree together, quietly and sincerely. Lord, go before us. Go before our words. Go before our choices. Go before the doors we cannot open and the doors we should not enter. Go before the timing we cannot force. Go before the peace we are still learning to trust. I closed the notes page, but I did not delete it. I left the words there for the next time my heart forgets. Lord, go before my answer. And beneath it, I added one more line for the morning ahead. Lord, go before my steps. Then I set the phone down, took one quiet breath, and walked into the day as a person being led.